Oh, hey everyone. Attorney Nathan Sweet here, the Catholic American. I was just reviewing the Federalist papers. Great book. Federalist number 4 coming at you. Also written by John Jay. He references Federalist number 3, which we just talked about. I think it's really interesting here because it's still advocating for why we need the Constitution, why the 13 colonies should ratify it and support it, and the idea of one central government, federal government, to for the purpose of conducting international relations. And I think this is really interesting because he covers here kind of as a caution he talks about how in their experience, how they see wars happening and conflict. And he says, it is too true, however disgraceful it may be to human nature, that nations in general will make war whenever they have a prospect of getting anything by it. Nay, that absolute monarchs will often make war when their nations are to get nothing by it, but for purposes and objects merely personal. Such a thirst for military glory, revenge for personal affronts, ambition, or private compacts to aggrandize or support their particular families or partisans. These and a variety of other motives, which affect only in the mind of the sovereign, only lead him to engage in wars not sanctified by justice or the voice and interest of his people, but independent of these inducements to war, which are more prevalent in absolute monarchies, but which will well deserve our attention. There are others which affect nations as often as kings, and some of them will on examination be found to grow out of our relative situation and circumstance. So before we get to that last part, and what he's going to be talking about is really just self-interest later with trade and geopolitics and where you're at situationally. He talks about how the Spanish would want to stop us from taking goods down the Mississippi out to New Orleans at the time, which is wild, and how the British would block us from using the St. Lawrence River. So self-interest, geopolitics, maintaining a strong position, that can cause war. But I just think it's really, really fascinating that our founding fathers are warning John Jay here that, look, it's obvious that people will go to war, that human nature, the evil part of mankind, will make them go to war when it's in their interest to do so, and they think they can get something by it. But it's fascinating that he notes the pride and arrogance of a dictator, and sometimes they do nonsensical things that aren't really against the national interest or for the national interest, and that would seemingly be against the national interest, but they do it for thirst for military glory, revenge for personal affronts. So you made them mad. And he says, or ambition, private gain for the monarch, for that leader, what's good for them. And he says, all of this are disgraceful motives that can lead a sovereign from going to war, even when it's against what their people want. And I just think that is so relevant today around the world and in America, that we need to be on guard for. Our founding fathers were incredibly wise. They studied and understood how authoritarians think. So pick up Federalist number 4, it's quick. You'll see the rest of John Jay's arguments that basically a strong federal government that unites us can better defend all of our interests by standing up. And he also says, some interesting things in Federalist number 3 and 4 about the more states you have, the more chances that you have of good qualified people leading the federal government for all 13. Now, whether that's true or not nowadays, because of the corruption, I don't know. But he says it in here, and it certainly without corruption would be true if people were still stepping up out of just pure love of country and the common good like they used to. So again, thanks for listening. to the Catholic American podcast. That's Federalist number 4 and John Jay. And remember, you are the King's good servant, but God's first.